So you want to learn magic? Good news, you've come to the right place. When it comes to becoming a professional magician, using magic in business, or fooling your friends and family, there's no better choice than the products made by Magic Makers. Hi, I'm Rob Stiff, and I want to thank you for choosing Magic Makers. Your journey into learning magic begins now.
Welcome to the world of mind reading. There are only a select group of people who know how to reach into somebody else's mind and pluck out a thought. You're in the right place. You're going to learn secret, simple tools to become a mind reader. I'm Rudy Hunter. Welcome to 13. Thank you. Do we have any card players? Anybody play gin, poker, bridge, strip fish? Nothing? No? No card players? Oh, I see a winner. Tell me your name, sir.
Mike.
That's entirely correct. Thank you so much. Hey, this guy's good. Mike, we're going to do a little mind reading. Tell me honestly, do you believe in mind reading or do you think it's hooey?
I think it's hooey.
Yeah, well, you'll have to leave. We'll edit you out and nobody will miss you. Mike, I'm going to run through the cards just like this. I'd like you to call out stop whenever you like.
Stop.
There? Will you look at it and remember it for me? Because if you forget at the end of the trick, it's, as they say, kind of lame. I'm going to get you to put your hand flat down on the pack. Thank you, thank you. It's okay, I'm a doctor, it's all right. I want you to think about your card. It was a black card, that's pretty obvious, and it was the, it's the Fierce Suit Spades. This is a really lucky card. Jack of Spades? Oh, pretty good, huh? Yeah, it's all right. And your name is?
Paul.
Paul, you don't play any cards, Paul.
Not too much, no.
I've been waiting for you. This is perfect. Let's have you do that. Call out stop.
Stop.
Will you remember it for me? All right, cool. If you'll do the honors, put your hand flat down on the pack. Oh, this time a red card and the romantic suit. Did you come with someone?
Neighbor.
Is that you? No. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, but you're beat right now. That's good. The romantic suit, hearts, and it was, that's a lucky romantic number, the 5 of hearts. Very nice. Now you're glad you came, aren't you? Your neighbor probably is too. Tell you what, why don't you give those a shuffle? I'll give you the box. You can hold on to them for later. I'm sure we'll come back and do some other tedious, boring card trick. There's a huge controversy in mentalism. Mind readers believe, well, some of them believe, you should never use playing cards in performance. What do you think? Do you think it matters? Well, it depends what you do, doesn't it? I'm going to show you something now that's incredibly simple and incredibly profitable. I will tell you that for years I've used this in walk-around situations, on stage, pretty much anywhere and everywhere, and it looks like it should. We're in the business of looking like mind readers. So we don't do fancy schmancy things with cards, we do simple things with cards that involve the mind. Here's what it looks like. A spectator is asked to call out stop as you run through the cards. They call out stop. You have them look at the card. The deck is closed. And then they take their hand and place it flat down on top of the pack. I often, especially if it's an attractive person, take my hand and put it on top of theirs and I ask them to concentrate on their card. I slowly reveal that it's a dark card. The spiritual suit, spades. Oh, and a very powerful number, the 8 of spades. That's usually followed by a little, or at least a good smile. So, how do we take a card trick and all the finesse and the technique we know and make it mind reading? Well, we start by taking out all of the finesse. That's the first step. And we use a little device that I think you're going to like. It's called a shiner. It's a little piece of reflective stuff. And you can make a shiner out of almost anything. For years before I had shiners made up, what I would do is go to the millinery section and get a shiny button. Anything will do. Something that's reflective. In a pinch, I've actually even used a piece of foil, although that's a little crinkly. You want just something that reflects. It's held in your hand, and the rest is almost completely window dressing. The cards can be shuffled by a spectator to their heart's content. It is a regular deck. And for those of you that like the exotic, you can do this with an ESP deck, a tarot deck, a symbol deck, anything that you have handy. So here's our set position. Our shiner, our reflective device, down at the base of the fingers, just held, not even palmed, it's just held there. And the deck is pushed pretty far forward so that there's space for you to see the reflection which is coming up. The spectator, as you riffle through, calls out stop. They can stop anywhere. It is a free choice. And then the cards are lifted so the spectator can make note of their selection. Nothing's happened yet. But now things change. In your way back down to replace these cards, you just move a little bit backwards and a little bit down. And what happens, because of your line of sight, is the index at the bottom is reflected in the shiner. So that momentary little reflection is all you need as you coalesce the deck and pull the deck directly over the shiner. There is nothing to see here from any single angle. Everything is covered. And for a little finesse, the person's hand goes on the deck. Your hand, for a little touch of intimacy, goes on top of theirs, and then you tune in to their vibration, their energy, whatever you want to call it, and slowly reveal the color, the suit, and the number. One of the benefits of this, aside from the fact that it looks spectacularly authentic, is you can do it over and over and over again and never get caught. I wouldn't do it endlessly to the same person over and over again, but I have done this 100 times in an evening of walking around entertainment, booked as a mind reader. I hope it makes as much money for you as it has for me. Use it well. Since the beginning of mind reading, since the beginning of fortune telling, gypsies, tramps, thieves, mind readers, and a few felons have figured out fiendish ways to get information from the inside of a piece of paper. If you get into mind reading the way I have, you'll discover there's a whole universe of literature about who invented something called the center tear. You can read it. You can try the 90,000 variations. I'm going to teach you my variation. This is all of these devices, all of these manipulations you're going to learn are just for figuring out what someone wrote on a piece of paper while you tear it up. That's the heart of the center tear. So in the performance, you'll see me reveal bits of information that are private, that are unknown to me. One of the best tools for this is a little piece of paper. Now, there are truly hundreds of versions of this. You're going to learn just one, and I encourage you to learn several so you've got a full arsenal. This was published by Al Mann. It was one of the first things I had published, and it's called Stingray. It's a version of what's called the Magi move, and it's just another spin-off from the center tear. Here's the heart of it. Spectator is given a piece of paper with a line on it and asked to write out a question. They're actually told to print a question. So we'll print a question, when will I move? That will be our question. And it's printed nicely while your back is turned, and they're asked to refold the piece of paper. The paper's pre-folded, so they fold it back up, and I tell them there's a line on the other side, which I've put there. I ask them to sign their name on the line. So we'll sign Hunter, because that would be me. So the thought is held privately. They know what they're concentrating on, and it's now secreted in the piece of paper. Here's my move. I'm going to do it for you first, and then we're going to blow it up in large form so that you can follow along with all the actions. This, like learning any card trick, any coin trick, any manipulation, takes a lot of practice. So this is something you'll want to come back to again and again and again until you can do it without watching your hands. That's the ideal. The first tear is done straight down. The next tear, unlike most of the other center tears, is also done straight down, which looks fair, honest, and open. As the pieces are coalesced together, I'm half open, so to speak. half open at the back. To open the other half, I'm going to bend in, and the paper snaps open. I'll show you exactly how to do this as we make it larger. So as my hands come together forward, in back is the full written question, which makes this a very unusual center tear. My good friend Al Mann published this because there are so few methods to read an entire question. Most methods only allow you to see a single word. So this is very unusual in the center tear world. There's the full read. And then to finish and clean up, all of the rest of the bits are torn and then returned to a spectator, burnt in an ashtray, placed in an envelope, any one of a number of things, and the hands are brushed clean as an afterthought, which proves that nothing is palmed out, nothing is secreted. So those are the mechanics of Stingray. I'm now going to make it really super large for you so you can follow along on any size piece of paper you have. That's one of the other benefits of this particular method, is that you can use literally any piece of paper, any scrap, the back of an envelope. I've used all kinds of pieces of paper to do this. So here's the jumbo version for you to practice and understand the mechanics of this. It's kind of like origami, really, about which way the paper is oriented. And then you can shrink it down for any size or type of paper that you're working on. You're making essentially a tube. The first third's folded in. The opposing third is folded in, but there's what we call in the business a big honkin' gap. This will later help your thumb open up the piece of paper. Make it as large as you need to be comfortable for your own hand. Now I'd like you to mentally divide the paper in half, because that's going to be an important marker for you. And now we have a marker, no pun intended. Obviously, you would never use a Sharpie or a thick, bleedy marker because it would bleed through the paper. We're doing this only for illustration purposes. Proportionately, this is the halfway line mark down the paper, later that's going to be important, on which they print their question. We'll use the same question, when will we move? So that's what the spectator prints on their piece of paper. The paper's refolded so that lip is on the outside. And to ensure that that lip is on the outside, you can add another subtlety. You can, if you'd like, draw two lines on the outside of the paper. Have them initial or write their name on both of them. Now, why would I bother to do such a thing? Here's why. It's possible that the spectator won't follow the previously folded marks, and they may fold your paper the wrong way in, which will disorient you. So leaving the lines on the outside for them to initial or sign on both sides absolutely secures the fact that the paper is going to be oriented correctly. Just a little safety feature. So here we are. You take it back. You're going to start the tearing process. The question is running horizontally. This would not be horizontal. This would be vertical. So the question's running vertically up and down the center of the paper. And because it's in the center, if you tear a little right of center, down, you're not going to tear through the question. In fact, you're going to guarantee that the question stays on the left-hand side of your paper. It's inside, but it's on the left. You're just going to track this strip now. This piece goes on top, and you line them up more or less, give or take. The question is going to be revealed here, so we're going to tear through what is now the center of this half piece. Here we go through all of the layers of the paper. We've just done two full tears honestly. This goes behind. Here's where the magic stuff starts happening, and the question is going to, as Al would say, unfold itself for you to see. Paper's oriented now, quarter turn to the right. Here's our magic lip. This is what we're looking for. I'm going to grab all of the layers of paper and stick my thumb under the lip. Now remember, this is an oversized piece of paper, so what will be seen will poke out from behind my hand, but it won't with a smaller piece of paper. My thumb goes in and opens up. I am halfway home. I've got half the question ready to be viewed. As I showed you previously, the right hand comes away, touches in, and what happens is that top layer flops open against my palm as my thumb comes in to hold the piece of paper. So from the front, looks like a clean hold. From the back, the full question with all its grammar and all its information is fully accessible to me for my vision. To finish up, you can reclose the pieces, but I frequently don't bother. I just tear down the center, overlap everything, and do several other tears, ending with my palms touching together, which ensures that the bulk of the question is on the inside, several layers down, in the center of this packet. Let me take you through one more time so that this will make sense with the correct size piece of paper. And you're going to have to experiment. Your hands are different than mine, your papers are different than mine, and you'll feel comfortable with a certain size piece of paper. So you'll have to experiment and figure it out. We're now going to use the same, let's use a different question. Let's spice it up, and I'll show you what you can glean from a single question. We're going to use the question, will Susan move? Paper is going to be refolded, and at least their name written on one side, or both if you'd like. So I'll take you through the mechanics again, and just to make things crystal clear, I'm going to black out on my side the area that I'm protecting, because really what you're doing is tearing around the protected quadrant. So it can be shown on all sides. The question is legitimately inside. Here's our first tear. Down from the center, nowhere near the question. Here's our protected quadrant. It's going to come closest to me. We're going to do a tear through all of the layers of the paper. That's our second tear. Protected quadrant closest to me. It always stays closest to you. You're going to do your quarter turn to the right, and here's where the magic will start happening. As you grab the piece of paper, the thumb goes under the first flap, and it's opened up fully. Hand comes away for a moment. As the fingers hit this edge, the rest of the question pops open. Behind both extended fingers, I see, will Susan move? I suddenly have a glut of information. I'm going to do a final tear down the center, coalesce all of the pieces without closing them. One final little cleanup tear and coalesce everything palms together. So if someone dug through the pieces, they'd find the meat of the question several layers in right in the center. I never give them that opportunity. This always gets burnt, shredded, destroyed, dropped in water, sealed in an envelope, any one of a myriad of things so that it's out of everyone's hands. And the final little psychological touch is a little unconscious brushing of my hands just because I think that makes good sense. Will Susan move? Well, who's Susan? What relationship does she have to the writer? Moving, that's a big deal in someone's life. When will Susan move? What time frame are we looking at? From 3 or 4 words, you can pick up a glut of information. If someone asks a question, does Fred love me? That's a big deal in someone's life. When will Susan move is another question that gives you a ton of information about the changes happening in someone's life. Let me give you one very important insight into the center tear. Well, 2 important insights. The first insight is start tuning into the person who wrote the question before you even start tearing. That will make it seem like you're getting vibes from the person even before you have access to any information. The second insight is don't parrot back exactly what's written. When will Susan move can be answered such as there's a big upheaval in your life at the moment, and I see all kinds of money-changing hands and contracts, but I don't think it's a business deal. It doesn't have the feel of business. It has the feel of almost a vacation. So I get the sense there could be a relocation or a move in the works because I see boxes and packing material. So, oh, wait a minute. And I get there's a woman that I'm tuning into who has the initial S. I can't get the rest of the name, but I think it's S. And your concern is with her. That's all I get, but the information is fading out now. That way of giving the information back is 1,000 times more powerful than saying, oh yeah, Susan's going to move soon and it'll be in February. What that tells the person is somehow you peaked what they wrote. There's something I want to share with you that I have used for many years from a brilliant psychic entertainer called Alexander Thomas. Alexander Thomas is a very underground character, and he taught me a way of using the Cenotaire that I have in a format that really sells. I want to share it with you because it's really good. The question you ask people to write is about a wish they want to have come true in their life. They seal it up, you tear it because the idea is you want to keep it private between themselves and the universe, and then you burn it, bury it, soak it, somehow destroy it. You sit and hold their hands, tune into their very wish, and feed back some of the information. What this does for someone who comes to see you is it absolutely convinces them that they're visible to you, you tuned into their energy, you may not have gotten everything right or perfect, but somehow you know their innermost wish, their most secret desire. It's a luscious way to do a reading. Practice well and do good work. Oh, thank you. Tell me your name.
Heather.
Heather. Heather, how big do you think the universe is?
Very big.
It's got everything in it, right? Every conceivable possible thing from iPods to cell phones to just anything. Would you come on up and help? The lovely Heather. Yay! So Heather, I'm going to have you do something really simple here. It says, please focus on any object, I should have underlined that, any object in the universe and print it below.
Okay.
Okay? But you probably already made up your mind. I want you to do something very strange. Whatever you just decided on, I want you to look at that as a preliminary decision, which you're not going to use. So when I snap my fingers, what I'd like you to do is to think of any object in the universe spontaneously and just see what pops up.
Okay.
Ready? Something pop up? Good. You print it there for me and just turn everything face down. I will look away from the invisible monitor. We don't have a monitor. Nobody's going to believe that though. Can I come back? All right. So here's the important part about this. I'm not going to look, you can't see through there, can you? All right. I'm not going to look, but here's the important part. You decided on something and then you made a snap decision. That snap decision you weren't aware you were going to make seconds before you made it. So that's real spontaneity. Now let's do the same deal. Can you see anything through there?
No.
The studio lighting? Okay. I'm going to fold this up. Right or left-handed?
Right.
Give me your left. All right, cool. This is going to go away. And I want you just to think about what that object is. And you got to give me a hint because we've established that everything is big in the universe. So it could be anything. Tell me, to your best guess, animal, vegetable, or mineral.
Oh, none.
Crap! Wow. That rules out a lot of stuff, but I guess it rules in a lot of stuff too. All right, that's not going to work. So it doesn't fit into any of those categories? All right, well, we'll just have to do it the hard way. Give me your hand this way. Hold on tight. Do you know anything about what you picked?
No.
So it's really random. It's just like a fleeting thought thing. All right. Close your eyes for just a second. Now, I feel a lot of tension up in your elbow and your shoulders, so if you want to relax that just by dropping your shoulder. Let me ask you just one preliminary question. Did you, for any bizarre reason, write down Carl Sagan?
No.
Okay. Maybe it's just me. But it has something to do with the universe. You got hooked on the word universe. This is a universal kind of term. Deals with the universe. Oh, it's pretty literal. This is a form out in the universe. That rules out like puppy dogs and like the local supermarket. That's the bigger. Wait a minute, I just got it. It just popped in. It's a black hole.
Oh my. Yes.
Awesome. Let's give her a big round of applause. Thank you so much. Oh. You know, it's great when it works because it's really awful when it doesn't. Yeah. Way to go. I'll be right back. So welcome to the world of what's called billets. Billets is an underground group of people who fiddle with little pieces of paper for years and years to try and figure out how to glean information from it. So you dipped your toe in by learning a version of the center tear. The next thing I'm going to show you is a much faster way to get that piece of information with zero mechanical ability at all. You're going to rely on props instead of skill with the hands. My suggestion is that you work with your hands and you get really good at a center tear, but in the interim, you need something, well, to tide you over. This next effect is called the invisible window, and Al Mann was good enough to publish it in the Purloined Thought. You might like it. It's down and dirty, fast and easy. Not unlike myself. So here we go. This little clump of cards, I've written for a spectator. It says, please print the name of any object in the world, thanks. So that's our instruction to the spectator, and here's how this plays out. It's really simple. Aside from the fact that very few people read something you give to them, you have to say it again. You say, sir, what I'd like you to do is to please print a name of absolutely any object you want in the world. Just print it down there, and I'm going to turn my back. So you dutifully turn your back. The spectator takes the stack of cards, and let's say they print down tomato. Although, why, if you had your choice of any object in the world, you'd pick that, I have no idea. However, you ask him with your back still turned to turn everything over and just leave it on the table. You turn around, and now you're set to perform the invisible window. I think you're going to like this. It's what they call bold. You pick this up facing away from you, and because this lower card is pre-folded, it bobs out a bit. You just fold it up like that, yank it out of the clip. You can toss these down on the table. Fold up the card. And here's what I always do because it gives me a cheap vicarious thrill. I ask the spectator to hold on to this and to hold it up to the light and ask him, can you read through anything on that card? He says no, because you can't. We then take the card, we burn it, we immerse it in water, we shred it, we tear it to bits, we do something with it to destroy it. I ask him to look into my eyes, concentrate, and I say, I'm getting the impression of, well, is it animal, vegetable, or mineral? In this instance, he'd say vegetable. I said, wait a minute. It's an actual vegetable. I see a red no, wait a minute. Technically, it's a fruit. It's a tomato. You nail the thought with zero work and no manipulation of your little fingers. So this is really bold. It's called the invisible window, and that should give you a clue. It will after I show you where the window exists. There's a big window in the card that you've cut out. If we fold the back flap backwards, you'll see that this big honkin' window is cut out of the card. Now the reason that he doesn't see this is because of the setup with the bulldog clip. This is our shield that hides everything. The pre-folded card is slipped underneath the bulldog clip, which hides the window completely. The instructions are printed there with the line. He prints whatever object he'd like. And then the mechanics, if you can call them mechanics, are this. You come back, pick it up off the table, making sure that you look away. And I actually turn my head to make sure that people don't think I'm trying to take a peek. You fold up the bottom flap. So far, everything is honest. It is as it should be. Here's the dishonest part. You loosen the clip and pull it free. Now from the front side, things look kosher to him. From the back side, you can read right through the window because there's nothing marring your vision. Now here's the subtlety. You fold it in half as soon as you've read it, and in half again. So you've got multiple thicknesses of index card here, and you pinch it so that it won't accidentally spring open. Although you can put it down on a table safely. He can't see the window from any point of view. Ask him to look through it, make sure he can't read anything, and then this is destroyed and the thought revealed. Doesn't look like much, but you'll be surprised how effective it can be if the revelation is exciting. Do your best to think up a way to make the revelation relevant to his life. That's what gets you rebooked as the mind reader. Enjoy it. Keep that up, you'll be exhausted by the end of the evening. Who have we not worked with? Who are the readers in the group? Who likes to read novels?
She does.
Oh, you are so busted. See what you get for coming with your friends? Oh yeah, pick her. Tell me your name, love.
Mary Jo.
Mary Jo. And who else we got that's a reader?
He is.
Mary Jo and?
Aaron.
Mary Jo and Aaron, all right. So I borrowed a couple of books from the bin of leftover books we have here. One is The Seance by Suzanne Northrop, I think very spooky. It's, I don't know, 200 odd pages. Then we have The Lower Brow, the New York City Cab Driver's Joke Book by Jim Pesci, also 220 odd pages, but some really funny jokes in there. Mary Jo, let's have you, which one do you want, the Cab Drivers or The Seance?
I'll do the Seance.
All right, you hold on to that one. We're going to make a random selection now. Aaron, I'm going to run through the book like this. I want you to just call out stop whenever you actually feel something. If you feel nothing, you ever had that happen? You feel like nothing? Pretend you feel something somewhere along the way and say stop.
Stop.
There? Okay, 128. Would you open to 128 for me? And Aaron, if you will, you hold on to that. You open to 128 too. Keep them tipped up away from me. I want you to just, there's, I don't know, 1,000 words, maybe not 1,000 words on 2 pages, 500 words on 2 pages. So let's just look at the first sentence, because otherwise I'll get overwhelmed, I'll get a headache, and then I'll have to lie down, and it'll be a very short evening. Mary Jo, I want you to just concentrate on the first sentence. You know what? First sentence might be like too much. Pick a couple of juicy words in the first sentence. I mean, like, don't pick an "a" or a "that" or an "is," because that's dull. You thinking about it?
Yep.
Oh, crap. I got nothing. You know what? I actually don't think I have this. We drove how far to get here? But to be honest with you, I think I'm close. I don't think it's, that'll be for you. First sentence, do we have some juicy words? We got just tons of its, thens. I want something good. Don't tell me what it is, but just concentrate on it. You got to give me a hint with this, because I get a jumble of like little words in my head. So we talking about an animal, vegetable, mineral? We talking about an occupation, a building? Just give me a general category, something to go on, because I crapped out with Mary Jo already here.
I need a demographic of some kind.
Wow. Left the 80s and came into the 20th century like a demographic. I don't know if that was a hint, but suddenly all of the little words kind of dropped out of my head. Aaron, what are you concentrating on? Tell me.
I'm concentrating on the question that the priest asks.
The priest? That's a joke book. Oh, a priest, of course. What did he ask?
And how old are you?
Like, how old are you?
Like, how old are you?
Good transmitter, very good. Now, Mary Jo, I'm pretty darn sure I didn't get it. But will you give me points if I'm in the ballpark? Remembering there's like 100,000, 120,000 words in the English language. I'm sucking up a little here. What are you concentrating on?
Radio waves.
Radio waves? I didn't get it. And I got nothing to do with a radio. But I got frequent. Is that close enough?
Yes, it is.
How is it close enough?
Because it's frequency.
Ooh, I missed it by that much. Well, I'll take it. Let's give them both a big round of applause. Yeah. Frequent. Damn it. You can both keep those books as a souvenir. Suzanne Northrup's is very good, and the other one you can tell your friends dirty jokes. So the amazing Dr. Faust, famous mentalist David Hoy, made a reputation worldwide on television. I'm going to teach you one of his standards. This thing is amazing. It's amazing because you can walk into anybody's home or office, grab a couple of books off the shelf, and start reading minds right away. I have here two books, The Seance by Suzanne Northrop, pretty good read, and The New York City Cab Driver's Joke Book, also a pretty good read, and I've laughed a lot from this one. They have, I think, roughly, well, give or take, they've got roughly about the same number of pages, and I'm going to teach you how to do this and really sell it. There's some subtleties that I think you'll like. You give both books to a spectator and you say, you keep one, you give me the one you don't want. Let's say they hand you the seance book. You turn to a second spectator and you say, I'm going to run through the pages like this. Whenever you feel the sudden urge, and please wait for the urge, I want you just to call out stop big and loud so everyone hears it. Let's say they say stop. You open it, 128. 128? Great. Would you please open yours to page 128 to the other person, which they do, and say, would you open yours to 128 as well? So both people on either side of you, anywhere in the room, have two books that you've never seen before open to the same page that's been called by one spectator. You turn to the first person, ask them to just scan the top line of text. Second person, scan the top line of text. And then you start to reveal a couple of words from that sentence accurately and completely. It's really simple. The whole thing is based on a really big lie. David Hoy's advice was, if you're going to lie, lie big. So it just so happens that when I borrowed these books, I scanned through to look at roughly how many pages it had. I wasn't really doing that. I was looking at page 128, which is a number that I can frequently remember under performance condition stress, and I memorized the top line on page 128. That's what I did. The line is, and how old are you, asks the priest. That's got a lot of funny revelation potential. That's why I picked it. So we can make some jokes about that if it's a fun, upbeat audience. I do the same thing now with the second book, checking again to see roughly how many pages it has. I scan open to page 128, and this is a complicated sentence on the top, so I remember the first three words, finely tuned frequency, also on page 128. So there's not much I have to keep in mind. I usually pick page 128, so I remember a finely tuned frequency, and then, and how old are you, asked the priest. So I have my revelations set, even though it's been literally seconds since I picked up these books. Here's the bluff on which this is based that really sells. I'm going to run through one of the books, and it's free, open, at the fingertips, no faffling about. When someone calls out stop, I'm aiming roughly to be somewhere in the middle of the book. It doesn't matter where. I stop where they want, so it doesn't look fishy. I open the book broad and wide. I look down where the numbers are, and I say 128. Here's the subtlety. I've miscalled the page, but then I do this. I shove it in their direction, and they can be many feet away. I've done this where someone's at the back of the room, and I still do this maneuver, because this in body language says, right? And they will almost invariably always nod when I shove the book in their direction. So anyone watching, it looks as if they've confirmed that it's 128. I close this up and give it to them. This person with the other book turns to page 128. Now here's the other nonsensical piece about this. If we made the selection out of the first book on page 128, and I opened it, looked at it, and then turned it away, I should already know what the word is in this book. However, that flies by almost everyone. So I get 2 revelations for the price of 1. I want to give you a tip on this. In Toronto in the early 80s, I was doing a special headline prediction that made the Toronto Sun newspaper. It got a lot of coverage because I predicted correctly the front page of the newspaper. It was a very stressful week, but a really good one. The method I was using required a whole bunches of pieces of different information to be forced to make sense of the method. So I figured out what's the fastest way I can force a whole bunch of stuff with the least amount of work. Then I remembered David Hoy. What I did was I took a stack of 5 books that I brought. One was a dictionary, one was a travel, like a travel atlas, a couple of novels, and I handed 4 of them out to 4 different people. Curiously enough, when I ran through one of the books, would you believe we stopped on page 128? I did the bluff miscall, shoved the book straight out to the audience and said, would you and you and you and you, the people holding the books, please open to page 128 and memorize the first word. So if you ever need it in a pinch, it's multi-purpose, not only with 2 books, for as many as you need. Use it well, it'll stand you in good stead. One final tip. For the Hoy book test, if you're working for just one person, sometimes you want to flesh this out a little bit and make it more dramatic or just make it larger. So you do the miscall in one book, page 128. Would you please open page 128 in your book? They do. You ask them to concentrate in this book, for example, on the first couple of words. And frequently I will write out slowly but surely either what the word is or a close approximation. I prefer to do a close approximation because I think it's 100 times more believable. One thing to really avoid, I've seen mentalists pick up a pad of paper and it takes them 10 minutes to get a word out. It's agony. So limit yourself to 20 seconds max and go for either the word itself or a close approximation. So in this book, frequency is the big word we're going for. I'll say just pick a big juicy word in the first couple of words. I want to work on something better than the or and or it. Something juicy. And I will, for a word like frequency, which is a wild abstraction, I will say I'm getting, oh dear, I'm getting, to be honest with you, I don't think this is the right word. It seems incomplete or will you forgive me if I'm at least close? And the lovely spectator always says, sure. Hey, this is hard work, mind reading. So I say, for the very first time, announce your word so everyone can hear, and I can't change my mind. I'm committed now. She says frequency. I go, I knew I missed it. The whole audience goes, psychologically. They're upset for me, which makes me happy. Then I say, you know, I think I was close. Will you take frequent as close enough? And then suddenly the audience goes, there's a big round of applause. The assistant gets a big round of applause. And I compliment her as she goes back to her seat on being such a good transmitter. Plays beautifully. Try it out for yourself. Prove me wrong. Thank you all. This is an unusual test. I'm glad we have a bunch of people. I'm going to just scooch up here. It makes the camera people absolutely crazy. I'm just redesigning everything. We're all going to kind of participate in this. Anybody have a birthday this month? No? Anybody have a special event this month? Something nice that's happening in their life? Something that's really special? Going to a wedding anniversary? Going on a good trip? Absolutely nothing is happening in this state. Chad?
It's our wedding anniversary.
Aww, big clap for Chad. Congratulations. R being?
Tina and myself.
Awesome, congratulations. Oh, isn't that wonderful? Well, in that case, we'll work with Tina. All right, we'll work over here. Tina, that makes you the special one.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing.
Oh, no, it's not as scary as what we did over here. So, now, you probably, judging by your shoes, know how to shop for just the perfect thing, right? Right, so it's a hone, refined skill. You see women shopping for shoes, they activate a whole separate part of their brain. It's the same part of the brain that's activated by chocolate. We know this, right? There's a special thing that goes on that I can get the best shoes at the best price and they will be the sexiest things ever. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. So in here, there are some folded up cards, but one of them is the special one, but just one. So I want you to hold your hand over these. Do you feel the special one? Awesome. Feel around, see which one you think is the special one. This one, put it over here, and we'll separate it out. But I want you to be really, really honest. Do you really think that's the special one, or did one of the other ones feel better and you'd like to swap for it?
I like that one.
This is the special one. According to Tina and her sexy shoes, this is the special one. So you're going to be the custodian of this. Keep it closed. And with the rest of you, if you do the honors for me, grab one of these. Just take one each for however many we got. I'd like you to open it up. Oops. Open it up. Show our camera what's on these. You hold on to yours. Open them up. Flash it to the camera. You got butt kiss. You got nothing. Anybody get anything? Wow, I'm not playing the lottery with you guys. Nobody got anything? Wait a minute. Open it up, show our camera, and see if you got the card that says the special one. The special one indeed. And you are. Way to go. Excellent. And you can keep the crappy pieces of paper because I don't need them back. So there's something really missing in mentalism. Let's say you want to learn how to do a billet switch. Where are you going to practice it? How are you going to practice it under fire to get good so when it really matters, you'll be okay with it? This was one of my frustrations. I wanted to do what's called billet work, little tricks with little scraps of paper, but to get really good at it, but I needed an environment. So I developed a way to practice billet switching in a close-up walk-around situation. This is perfect for cocktail parties. I spent a lot of years doing walk-around mind reading in a restaurant, go figure, as part of a dinner theater magic show. So I came up with this. It's called Birthday Billets, and it was first published in the notes for my Mind and Money seminar. You might like it. Birthday billets is ideally for a group of people, people who are out ideally celebrating a birthday, but I'll give you a couple of ways to work with this in case it's not a birthday event. But a table of 6 or 8 or 12, a group out to have a good time. Here are the mechanics of birthday billets that I think you'll like. You take out a little purse and dump out a bunch of little coupons, but what's written on them is going to be a surprise. We're going to turn our attention to the birthday girl. So you ask, let's say it's Sally, to tune in and use her best shoe shopping vibration and move her hand over the cards and see which one really speaks to her. You want the one that makes her really feel something. And I usually play this up. It takes a while, but let's say she eventually settles on this one. I say, are you sure you want this one? Because you can change your mind. And if she wants to change her mind, she can change her mind. But we settle eventually on one. Say, great. So Sally, this will be your piece of card. I want you to protect it. And these ones, I get the other people at the table to grab one and open it up. Because otherwise, if I open it up, it'll take forever. So everyone at the table goes through the process of opening up each of the cards. And we go around and check. It turns out that each and every one of the cards is completely blank. I said, well, don't feel bad. This is not about you. It's about Sally, our birthday girl. She's here celebrating her birthday. I said, Sally, did this card actually speak to you more than any other? She says, absolutely. She picks it up, opens it, and printed boldly across it is happy birthday. Aww. So it's not only a sweet, fun event that involves everyone at the table, but she gets to be the special one at the table. She's picked her own birthday card. Now I'll show you the mechanics of this, then I'll teach you a really fun variation depending on the kind of places you work in. The mechanics are really simple. You get a whole bunch, 5, 6, 8, it doesn't matter how many, blank matching cards. And these are just index cards cut in half, blank on both sides, folded into quarters, and it's important they're all folded identically so they look the same. The one that Sally's eventually going to pick is not in the purse at all. It's in your pocket. Ah, this is where the cheating starts. So all of the others are loaded willy-nilly into a little coin purse. You don't have to use a coin purse. You can use a mint tin. You can use anything, just some container. So this is also in your pocket as well, and you're set to go at any point in time. So if you're coming up to work on a group of people, you already know this is set to go. You reach into your pocket, and you get set with these two things. The birthday billet, the card, is folded in your fingers, and the purse is lying on top. So as you're talking, you can be as free as you like, because until you lift it up, you can't see it. So you open up the purse and dump out all of the little cards onto the table. The trick with this is to make a mess. This is not a tidy event. Your birthday billet is still here, and you close the purse back up and lay it squarely on top. You now have all the freedom in the world. This is a messy thing. The more billets, the better. So the fun with this is to interplay with Sally and have her feel the vibe. I use the thing about, tune into your shoe shopping vibe to find the best one that's, most suitable for you. She picks one and separates it from the others. She can change her mind as many times as she likes, and if she does change her mind, it's actually stronger in the retelling, because she says to her friends, oh, I picked this one and then I changed my mind to another one. How did he know? Yes, how did I know? So we eventually settle on one. You're now going to learn one of the classic billet switches. This is an old gypsy switch. It was picked up by Phil Goldstein, taught with a pencil. It was brilliantly retaught by Richard Osterland. Everybody's had their hands on this thing. I'm going to show you how to do this brainlessly. There are two parts, the mechanics and then where you look. And the second part is the most important. Here are the mechanics. One billet here, one hidden billet here. Here are the mechanics, and I'm not kidding you. Hands come together. Thumb goes on the purse. Drag the purse over to the side and pull your hand away. Nothing fancier than that. If you do anything fancier than that, you're going to get caught. So hands come together, you move the purse, you come away with the billet you've rung in or switched in. Now, here's the critical part. I can look in the wrong place many times during this, and I can get busted each and every time. I'm going to show you where to look and when. This is the part that makes it wonderful. You look at the billet in your hand as you start. The purse comes over, you look up at the spectator and ask a question. Are you a natural blonde? Do you skydive on the weekends? How do you vote? Doesn't matter what you ask them. So this action happens while you're addressing the spectator. Then you say, oh, you're a Republican, congratulations. You look down at the rung-in billet. That's how to make this switch invisible. This is put in her hand in a glass with her finger on it, somewhere separated. And here's the cleanup I think you'll like, because I like my hands to be empty, because I don't want to get busted palming anything. Here's the cleanup. You got two ways to do it. The first is you reach down with this palmed billet and grab the other billets in your hand to help pass them out to other people at the table. I'm quite proud of that. This is what I call a self-cleaning billet routine. If you don't like that, if that way of working doesn't thrill you, the billet that is under here can be added this way. You can take the purse and the billet squeezed together, chuck it down on the table. Your hands are now empty. Pick it up, move it out of the way, and ask everyone to pick up one and open it up. So that's birthday billets, and it works beautifully. My suggestion is that you use it as a birthday event. There is a variation I'll have to admit I have used, but I will pre-warn you. You have to be very sure of yourself and very sure of the clientele where you're working. My suggestion is that if you ever get a chance to work an after-hours club or a really raucous bar, this variation I'm going to suggest to you plays 1,000 times better, even when it's a birthday event. My suggestion, if you work in this environment, is to have a billet with these words on it. This word. This then becomes the Virgin Detection Kit. Now, if this is a heavy drinking, rock and roll, fun, young, wonderful with your audience, This will bring the house down, where instead of Sally picking out her birthday card, you will have identified her as the virgin at the table. But use caution. You don't want to end your employment too early. So you'll make your best decision. Use it well and practice your billet switch. Good luck. Paul, we're back to you. I feel so guilty about the first thing that we're going to make up for it. I have an obscure coin, a small bulldog clip, and lip balm. It's what I collect. This will be my prediction of sorts. Are you right or left-handed?
Right-handed.
Okay. I want you to hold both hands up for me like this, point these fingers, and touch two objects. These two. Good. Get this out of the way. I'll get you to take one of each of them in each hand up like this, and give me one. Good. This is the one you gave me?
Yes.
All right, we'll get rid of the other one. Do you know what kind of coin this is? Because I have no idea.
No.
It's just a big honkin', looks expensive, but it's a big honkin' coin. Did you know you were going to pick this before we started?
After you had laid them out?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're freaking me out. So you knew. So you already saw the end where I showed the prediction matched exactly what you ended up with.
Didn't see it.
Yeah. You do nice work. Keep it up. So you'll read in almost every book on mind reading about equivoque. That's magician doublespeak for you hear what I want you to hear and you don't hear the stuff that you shouldn't be hearing. Equivocation is a way of speaking out of both sides of your mouth. So if you want good practice, you turn on the TV, you watch some politicians speak, you get the idea. With equivoque, you can do a really simple, beautiful force. Here's my prediction. It's in a little coin purse. And I have three words that are simple words here. There's dog, air, and house. Or if you don't like them that way, it could be house, air, and dog, or house, dog. It doesn't matter. Three different ideas. But here's my prediction we'll get to in a second. Here's how you equivocate to the one that you want the spectator to select. Here's what you say. I'd like you to take both hands at once, point both fingers, and touch two of these for me. Let's say they touch these two. House and air. See, I'll take them from you. Terrific. Thanks so much. That leaves us with dog. Did you have any idea you were going to end up with a new dog? A little joke. No. They open up your prediction, and inside is a match for dog. Seems pretty simple and straightforward. But obviously you're wondering what happens if the other two are selected. Let's take you through the variations because you're going to need to know how to do this, whether you're doing certain card effects, certain object selections. It shows up a lot in mind reading. So it's good to become very facile with it. So it's hands up, fingers pointed, touch two. So whether they touch your force card and the one on the right or your force card and the one on the left, irrespective of where they're laid out, you're down to two. Here's what you say. You've touched two. Do me a favor, take one up in each hand and hold them flat. This is the position they're now in, dog and air. Now you say the words, hand me one. If they hand you the one you want, you take the other one from them, throw it down as a discard with the others and say, great, you handed me a dog. That's nice. You show the prediction. But what about the other circumstance? They're in this position, you say, hand me one. They hand you air, the other one. You take it, you throw it down as a discard and say, that leaves you with one out of three you've selected, the dog. If you play back the last minute or so, you'll hear that when we get the right response, I say things like the one you're left with or the one you selected. And I don't use that language before they've actually been left with it. Let's take this out of the realm of ideas because it's a little harder to learn. But I figured I'd show you the hard way first, then we'll go on to the easy visual way. Let's say you're going to use borrowed objects. And I suggest that you do because borrowed objects carry a lot of punch. You can borrow a watch, a ring, some staples, a glass of wine. This is really fun to do with 3 people's drinks if you're working in a bar. I just realized it sounds like I spend an awful lot of time in a bar, doesn't it? At any rate, you've got 3 objects. You've got a coin, lip balm, and a bulldog clip. Very different things. Let's go through the same process. Here's how it would play. Both hands up, point your fingers, touch 2. Let's say they touch these. Another way to do this is to say, great, you're touching those, push them forward if you would. It separates them out from the other. You take this out of the way. Say the bulldog clip or the coin. Don't make up your mind in advance. Take one in each hand. Hand me one. Let's say they hand you the coin. You throw this down as a discard. You say, this is really nice of you. This looks like a pretty nice coin, worth some money. Would you do me a favor? Open up my prediction. And sure enough, it matches as a duplicate object. Plain, simple, you'll be surprised at how well it plays. Get used to equivocating, and maybe you'll be lucky and end up in politics. Enjoy it. Good? Oh. Excellent. My dear, tell me your name.
Michelle.
Michelle. Is that your real name?
It is.
Just checking. You never know. I'm in a foreign place. Michelle, I want to do a little test with you. Would you annoy the camera people and come on up? The lovely Michelle. Big round of applause. Oh, that's very good. I wasn't expecting that, but that's make yourself at home. Why not? Michelle, I want you to do something weird for me. Like all the other things I've asked everybody else have not been remotely out of the ordinary. I'm going to ask you, I will give you this wacky card that's blank. I want you to think about a very simple picture that you can draw in less than 30 seconds, that is not complicated,
Okay.
that is not a piece of fabulous artwork.
Okay.
All right? I'd like you to draw it on the front there. Watch this. This is one of those permanent markers you don't want to get on. Wait till I turn around. Okay, I'm turning around. Now the fellows over here will watch my shifty little eyes and vouch for the fact, hopefully, that we don't have a monitor that I'm looking at. But, you know, they'd never know at home if I was lying, would they? No. Sad but true, really. And when you're done with the picture, Michelle, I'd like you to turn the card face down so I can't see it. And if you're still drawing 5 minutes from now, you're going to make me very, very nervous.
I'm done.
Oh, you are? Okay. Turn it face down for me, because I'm going to come back around.
Okay.
All right? We'll take it face down so we can't see it. I'm going to ask you your, let's take the thingy off here. I'm going to ask you your initials. What are they?
Emmy.
Oh, that's funny. Well, maybe not to you.
I'm used to it.
Are you? Oh, it's me. And we're going to write Emmy there. Look, it's me. It's me in the circle. Oh, that's so cute. All right. Take those. Keep that open. I'm going to turn around again. I want you to take your drawing, stick it in the brown envelope, and I'd like you to seal the envelope up and put your initials, the ME, on the outside. Did I tell you to seal it? I can't remember. Yeah? Okay, sealed. And then once you've done that, I want you to hold up the envelope to this blazing studio light, which is very strong, and try and look through and see if you can actually see your drawing through it. Can you see it?
No, I can't.
Which is why we put it in the envelope. Awesome, good. Stick it in the other envelope now. And if you'll seal that one up for me.
Initials?
Oh, awesome. That would be great.
Okay.
Now I'm going to ask you to do something slightly rude.
Okay.
Would you sit on the envelope for me? All done?
I'm done.
You know, you can get people to do almost anything. I just breezed in from out of town and this poor okay, good. Let's recap this so that I don't get it all over myself.
Good idea.
Do you have a good imagination?
Somewhat.
All right, let me take this out of your way because that's just going to annoy me. Good. So, a good fantasy life, good imagination,
Okay, sure.
vivid dreams?
Sometimes, definitely.
Oh, all right. Cool. We're going to do something very strange. Now, I know you're in a weird environment in front of a bunch of people you know, so the easiest way to make them go away is to close your eyes And I promise I'm going to touch you, but it's not going to be inappropriate, and it will be very gentle. I'm going to touch you on the head and the back of the shoulders a couple of different times.
Okay.
So your whole job is to forget where you are. The people are looking at you going, oh, what's going to happen? And to relax as best as you can. Okay?
Okay.
Cool. So I'm going to step behind you, and we are just going to do some high weirdness here. And I'll tell you what I'm doing in a second. Michelle, I want you to think that you are drawing that same drawing you drew, but on a really, really big white canvas screen. So it's really huge, and you're drawing it in your favorite color. And all of the different elements you put in your drawing, whatever they are, you just see them up there in vivid, bright color. And I don't know if you're actually aware of the sensations that you have, but if you feel anything unusual, I'd like you to let folks know.
My eyes.
And what's going on with your
They're
eyes?
opening.
Yeah. And just pay attention if there's any twitching or weirdness or hot or cold, because sometimes that happens. And how about now?
I'm getting warm.
And warm where?
All over.
All over. So just let that happen and keep your attention on the picture in your mind.
My back is shaking.
Yeah, a lot of you is shaking. That's a really good, vivid imagination. So I want you to take a really big, deep breath, blow it out, and relax. Good. You did awesome. That's my favorite question. Was it good for you?
It was.
Yeah, me too. I need a cigarette now. Can I get the envelope from your tushy? And you can't see through this, can you?
No.
Even up to the light?
No.
Okay. While I was touching and holding points, I saw, I think, a similar image.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but it was in two parts. Am I right to think that it's a two-parter image?
It is.
Now, I don't know if you were influenced by me drawing this, but over here on the right, I see kind of a circly thing. Would that be it?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. And the other part of this image is complicated. Like, this is the simple part, but the
Yeah.
other is like, yeah?
It's
That's a technical word.
more difficult, yes.
Okay. I want you just to think about it gently now, and that shaking shouldn't bother you anymore, because that's just a temporary thing. Will you give me, I don't know. Will you give me credit if we're close?
I'll give you credit.
Okay. Would you tell them what the other part of the image is?
It was a house.
Oh, so the circly thing is what, the sun or the moon or something?
The sun.
It's the sun. A house like this?
Pretty close.
Awesome. You did great. Let's give her a big round of applause. And that's for you. Thank you so much. Wow. And I'll be right back. This next effect I'm particularly proud of. It comes out of a very obscure, badly written mental book with some really good material in it by Gene Grant, who went by the name of Fantini when he performed. I didn't understand the directions. I could not make sense of them, so I made up something that I think, well, I know it plays really well, and I think you'll get some good use out of it. It is the boldest thing I think you'll ever see anyone do, but if you'll follow my directions with this, no one will ever catch it. It's a little outrageous. It's a way of doing a design duplication, of glimpsing a design someone has drawn in an instant directly in front of them with no gimmicked props at all. So, with that tall order, you need a big, thick Sharpie marker. You need some kind of cardstock. I'm going to use a blank face card, but it can be a really thick index card. Anything will work. It's not gaffed at all. You need a small, ungaffed pay envelope and a larger pay envelope that's not gaffed either. Here's the setup. If you'll collect these and follow along with me, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how well, how outrageous this really is. I approach a spectator before the show. This is what I do to set up for a special design duplication within the context of my show. And I say, I want you to help me out with a special project. Would you be willing to do that? And I get their consent. I say, I'm going to just draw a little circle here for now. We'll get back to that in a second. But would you do me a favor? I would like you, if you will, to think of a simple, easy design that won't take you an hour and a half to draw, that once you see it, you can recognize it in an instant, but please keep it a secret from me. Will you do that? So they think for a minute. I reassure them that they don't have to be a painter or an artist, and they go, oh, yeah, okay. I hand them the card. I turn my back. While my back is turned, I sort of yell over my shoulder. I say, draw that now. So we're going to presume that they pick a little old flower pot to draw. This is going to be their design. That's the target drawing, but I don't know that yet. I ask them to turn the card face down, which they do. I ask them if it's safe to come back. I turn around, and here's the setup you're going to need. Envelope, envelope. You take the card, you flash it to them, turning your head because you don't want to see it yet. Say, that's the one, right? They say yes. This goes here. Now, here's the outrageousness coming. I say, what are your initials? They say BB. Well, they say BB if those are their initials, and presumably that's the case. Here comes the one outrageous move in all of this. You come in palm upwards and clamp everything in this grip. So if you took your other hand away, everything is clamped here. Okay? You're going to turn everything over in one unit onto the tips of your fingers. So the turn comes here. Everything is braced upwards. And those of you that do card tricks will recognize this looks like a Charlier cut. Charlier cut. There we are. In this moment, as soon as this is up, here's what happens. This drops. You sight the design. You can see it in an instant because it is a design. Everything drops down flat. The circle is to draw their eye, and you repeat their initials. You say BB, right? And they go, yep. Great. You assume this position with your hand again, clamp everything, including the card. Here's what happens next. I turn it all over down onto the table, put the pen down, say, here's what I'm going to do. I don't want to touch anything. That's an outrageous thing to say. But you say, I don't want to touch anything, and you turn your back. For the rest of the instructions, your back is completely turned. You ask them to take the card, put it inside the envelope, seal up the envelope super, super tight, hold that envelope up to the light to make sure they can't see through it, take that envelope, stick it in the other envelope, seal it up, hold that up to the light, make sure they can't see through it, write their initials on the outside of the final envelope, fold it up and stick it in their pocket. What a production number. The reason you do that is all smoke and mirrors. In an instant, you've got the design. This stays inside their pocket, and in the context of a show, I seldom mention that we had anything written. I only usually mention that they're just focused on a design. I'll give you a really important tip. You will be tempted to have them print a word. Please don't do it. You have a split second with this to get the whole visual of the card in one go, and you haven't got a second chance. With a word, you have to process the spelling of the word, and it takes a lot longer in time, and you'll, well, likely get caught. Stick with a design, you'll do wonders with it. And Fantini, thanks for making a really hard, cumbersome description produce something even better. Thank you. So it's time for me to hit you up for some money. Can you check your wallets for me and pull out a dollar bill if you have one? And if you don't, you were probably the smarter of the group. Fold it with the serial number on the inside in half, please. Good, good, good. fold it in half again, and a third time. We're going to try and make them all look reasonably the same, because we're going to have kind of a lottery. And the winner gets the Samsonite luggage and a trip to Bermuda. No, there's no trip. That's good. That's not going to look like, yeah, fold it the other way for me. Let's have you fold it the other way, because I think everyone's done like a little square deal. Good. So let's have, why don't you pass them down to Chad. Chad looks like he's a little short. He could use a few bucks. Good. Will you do the honors for me, Chad? Shake it up. And have I asked your name already?
No, Amber.
Amber. Chad, give the money to Amber. Amber, you shake it up. Good. Keep doing this for the camera. Oh, sorry. And if you will, I want you to poke in and pull out 1. Here's the $1,000,000 question. Do you want this one, or do you want to change it for what's behind the curtain?
No.
You're sure? You don't want to change it? All right. You, why don't you give everybody back their bucks? We're going to use this. Good, everybody, good. Give it back to people who didn't loan the buck. That's a nice touch. So hold on to that. I want you to hold it high above your head. Good. And when your arm gets tired, you let me know. And I'll make you hold it a little more. Amber, do you know whose dollar that is?
No.
Me neither. What I want you to do, I'll stand, should I face this way? Let's face away. I'll face away from the cameras a little bit. I want you to open up the dollar bill and have a look at the serial number for me. And fellas, you can watch to make sure I'm not trying to look over my shoulder. Amber. Now, Amber, do those numbers mean anything to you particularly? They have any significance?
No.
Tell me how many numbers there are.
8.
Wow, that's a lot. Okay. And often, well, not always, but often there's letters. Are there letters as well as numbers?
Yeah.
How many letters?
2.
2 letters, 8 numbers. Oh my God, I'm going to be tired by the time this is done. 2 letters, 8 numbers. Okay, here we go. Focus on the first one. You got it in your mind?
Yep.
Actually, you focused on the first 2. I got the first 2, I think. Focus on number 3, the third number over. Wow, you're doing like a twofer. I got. It's like special discount days. How many? Wow. Just keep looking at the number. You're a really good transmitter of this. Second number to the end I'm having trouble with. Is it a, well, it doesn't make sense. Is it a weird number? Or is it a number like duplicated a lot? Or is there something unusual about it?
No.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. It's a gap. It's a 0, isn't it?
Yes.
That's why I couldn't get it. All right, look at the last number. Same as the first, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Focus on the, what are they called? Letters. Focus on the letters. 2 letters, right?
Right.
Only in your mind, not out loud. I want you to say the first letter and the last letter over and over and over again, like you're spelling. So you spell A-B, whatever they are. Got it?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing light bulbs. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, G-E. G-E is the, would you do me a favor? In a loud announcer's voice, read out the serial number as it is on the bill, starting with the letters.
G.
G.
6 2 5 9 7 3 0 6 E.
You did awesome. Thank you. My dear, you've earned your $1. I now get to say my favorite line. Your money's on the dresser. I'll be right back. So if you're working with billets of any kind, you want to go back to the classics and see how they were used to make a small, tiny little switch into a huge stage event. Al Baker did this beautifully with the serial number divination I'm going to teach you how to do. It's based on one switch, and it's really smart. It involves the whole audience. Here's why. He asks at the beginning for 5, 10, 15, 3, 8 different people to take a $1 bill out of their wallet and fold it up 3 separate times, so it looks like that. with the serial number on the inside. So that's step one. It involves a whole bunch of people actively working on this effect. He used to use this as an opener. Then he would scan the audience for the most voluptuous, stacked, sultry woman who was there and ask her to saunter through all the folks who had a dollar bill and to pick one to her liking. Actually, she'd collect them all up first and then pick one out that she liked the best. She would saunter and swagger up on stage, holding the bill high, and Al would take it from her and say, "Honey, do you want to change your mind?" And she would often say no. He'd say, "Oh, you're happy with the mind you have." He'd take the bill and hold it high over his head, not just a little, but really high. Suddenly it was a big act. It was a big event. He frequently would go over and take the bill and affix it to a clip or a hook that was high, high on the wall. He'd have her take it off after he picked up a pen, unfold it, and to focus on the serial numbers. And lo and behold, he would be able to, tuning into her vibration, which I think is really kind of good if you're focusing on the vibration of a very voluptuous woman on stage. It sort of makes the act look bigger. He'd ask her to concentrate on it. He got a 5, a 2, a 7. Then he got into trouble. 4, 0, 4, 0. He's not sure, and there's a couple of letters too. He'd show the audience this jumble. He got 5, 2, 7, 4, 0, 4, 0, 0, and a G and an H, but he's not sure. He'd have her unfold the bill, and in her best radio announcer voice, she would read out the serial number starting from the beginning and going to the end. This serial number, G5274040H, and he nailed it absolutely completely. So Al took a very small bill switch, a tiny little maneuver, and filled a whole auditorium with activity and fun and made mentalism big and relevant and actually even sexy. I'll show you how you can do the same thing. It's great cover for learning a bill switch as well. You start with a bill that you know the serial number of. Now in performance, I will tell you, I can't remember much because I'm focused on a multitude of other things, so I take no chances. Alexander Thomas taught me way back when that if you need to remember something, you write it small on your pad so that when you pick up your pad, your finger or your thumb can cover it easily, and yet you get access to it any time. So that's how I keep track of the bill serial number without having to put it into memory. So that bill is the one that's going to be rung in. It's folded in half again, and in half again. This stays down in the pocket for when I need it. All the bills that are collected, this is what's nice about mentalism. You can get people to do almost anything. You have other people do all the work. They pull the dollar bill out of their pocket, they fold it the way you tell them to. Do it with 10 or 15 or 20 people. It gets the whole audience involved. And then someone collects this big clump of money, which in itself looks pretty compelling. Then one person, preferably voluptuous, makes a selection of the bill that she wants. You ask her to take it and hold it high above her head. Now I know why Al did this in a large auditorium with a stacked assistant. There's one thing to have a lady schlub a little bill up on stage, which is a non-event. But picture, if you will, a very voluptuous woman with her hand high over her head. You see what I see? Yeah, that's entertainment. While she's doing this, you have all the time in the world to casually put your hand into your pocket and get your bill ready. Ready is not really even a word. You just put it there. It's not even really palming. You just hold it there, and you can hold it there with your thumb if you like. The other thing you should have set is something like a bulldog clip or a glass on stage, something to do with the bill once you've exchanged it. So let's do the exchange. You've seen a similar exchange in birthday billets using a little coin purse. Now you're going to replicate the exact same thing, but we're going to take the purse away because you're better at this now. Watch the actions. First the mechanics, then where to look. the bill to ring in, the bill to ring out. You take it from her in your hand. You bring your hands together, thumb goes on the bill, other hand comes down on top, nothing moves, nothing changes. This hand comes away and the bill is shoved up to your fingers. Those are the mechanics. They're very uninteresting. To make it really interesting and much more invisible, here's where you look. You take the bill back from her. You're going to start the motion by looking here. Then you're going to ask her a question. You can ask her anything. Honey, are those real? Do you shop at Walmart? You can ask her anything you like. As you ask, the hands come together. You look at her. As she answers, you look at the rung-in bill. Now your hand's going to feel like it weighs 400 pounds even though it's just got a bill hiding in it. So here's your way out. You go into your pocket after a moment's pause and get your trusty bulldog clip, any kind of device you want to clip it shut. You can give this to her. You can hang it on a wall. You can do whatever you want with it. All of the work is done. Your hands are clean. You know the serial number because it's written on your pad and you have instant access to it. That's how you take a tiny little event in mentalism and make a big production number out of it by peering into folded dollar bills and revealing their serial number. See how big an act you can get out of this. Enjoy it. It's time to get even spookier. Even spookier, hard to imagine. Tell me your name again.
Mike.
Mike. Mike, Mike the card player. That I remember. Mike, do you believe in ghosts and invisible things and spirits?
Yeah, I actually do.
Do you? Me too. Mike, we're going to try a little piece of weirdness here. I'm going to run through the cards. I'd like you to call out stop whenever you like. And I'm going to look over here so you guys watch my eyes. Ready? Call out stop.
Stop.
Will you remember that card for me? All right. So Mike, that's going to be our target. And I'm going to use a very old, unusual device. It's called a pendulum, and you may have seen these. You may have heard about like water witches and people who douse for water. This is based on the same principle, but it's just really just a fancy ball and chain. And your job is just to make a picture in your mind of what your card is. I'm going to show you something neat about the way this works. If you relax and take a breath, you know the way we nod our head like this forward and back? If you think that that's a yes, which we're all trained to do, the thing starts to move as a yes. Now you may not believe that, but as we go along, you may change your mind. If you think no, which is a sort of a left-right back and forth motion, this amplifies that thought. That's all it does. It's just an amplifier. So with this, you can ask a lot of yes-no questions and often be directed in a good direction. So for example, I'm going to ask just generally, is your card red? I don't know what it is, but I think it's red. Don't tell me yet. We're going to assume that that's on track. I'm going to go for the suit. Is it a diamond? And that's a pretty clear no for me. I've done this a while, so it's kind of fast. So obviously a heart, unless I screwed up on the red thing. I want you to just think about the number of the card. I'm just going to call out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks to me somewhere between 3 and 7, give or take. And let's do that specifically. 3, 4, 5. 5 of hearts?
Sure is.
Awesome. Wow. Now that's fine and dandy, but that's me. That's not you. So, while I was talking, I gave you a little crash course in how to use a pendulum. So we're going to see how things go. Mike, why don't you scoot yourself up here? This is getting awfully untidy here, isn't it? Can I get you to hang on to that for just a second? Good. Now we have surfaces. I'm thrilled. Mike, I'll run through the cards again. You call out stop. I'll look over here. They'll watch my shifty little eyes. Stop. Got it? Okay, that's going to be your new target card, and if you can do your best to remember, I know it's a long long way off. We'll put the cards here. Here's how you do this. You're only really going to pinch between these two fingers. Okay, if you'll do that for me in whatever hand's comfortable. Now I know you're in front of a bunch of strangers, but pretend they're not here. Take a breath, relax, because this doesn't work well unless you relax. So you take a breath. Let's see you do a yes. I want you just to think yes and watch what happens to the pendulum. And you're going to be the best judge of this. It doesn't look like it's made up its mind yet. Just keep thinking yes and think about doing that motion, but don't actually do it. And that's probably freaking you out just a little bit. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now I want you to think no, which is a back and forth motion of our head, and just allow it to do that without actually making it do it. Super freaked out, right? That's how this works. It's just an amplifier of what's going on in your system. So, I'm going to ask, is this a red card? Think the answer, and watch what happens. Now, it looks like it's stalled up. So here's my suggestion. Relax your shoulders, take a breath, and it's okay if it doesn't work. You still got freaked out twice just a minute ago, and we'll take that, all right? So is it a red card, and allow it to do whatever it's going to do, but don't actively make it do it. Now what does that look like for you? Is that a yes or a no?
Looks like a yes.
Looks like a yes to me too. Good, all right. So let's go to our next thing. Is it a, we'll do the same as last time, is it a diamond? So think the answer, and then watch what happens. And do you see we hit the same glitch? Take a breath. Isn't that weird? What does that look like to you?
No.
Yeah, so that would make it a hard if we're right. Just keep it still for a second. Think the number. And you know that tight space between your shoulder blades? Put your attention right there for a second. And you tell me when that space between your shoulder blade moves or changes. Did you feel it change? Take one more deep breath. You let me know when.
Okay.
Did it change?
Mm-hmm.
Because I just got the number, 2 of hearts.
Mm-hmm.
You did awesome, Mike. Way to go. So next week he'll be picking lottery numbers. You can, he'll have a little booth at the mall. You can just line up. And I'll be right back. I'm going to teach you the one slide I use more than any other with cards, and then I'll show you how to maximize it so it looks super spooky. It's a peek, and here's how I frequently have cards selected. I'm going to run through the cards. I ask the spectator to call out stop whenever they like. They say stop there, for example. I close up the deck, turn it over, square it up, and then I'm able to reveal the card as being the 6 of clubs. I'm going to teach this to you first and then show you a bunch of applications so that when you're at a party with a deck of cards and you want to do some serious mind reading, I'll show you how to put the window dressing on it so it gets really spooky and neat. The first run through, everything is held at the fingertips. My fingertips hold the deck here, fingertips touch here. This is a psychological ploy. I say I'm going to run through the cards and I want you to say stop whenever you like. I re-grip things so the deck is much lower in my hand, beveled over to the right, and it looks like I'm going to do exactly the same thing, which I do. They say stop, but as the deck closes, I jam my fourth finger into the deck and let it close. So my thumb keeps pressure here to keep the edge closed, but there's a great big whacking gap here. Now watch the peak. I'll break it down in slow-mo for you. As my hand turns inward, here's what happens. I squeeze my fingers towards the ball of my thumb, and an automatic step is created just from the squeeze. There's no technique, you just squeeze. I roll in here and pinch the deck tight. I'm going to take my hand off to show you what I see. I see a little index peeking up at me right down by the base of my hand. It's the card they stopped at. So there it is with the hand in place. And the action of the peak happens down in this corner, but it's facing upwards to me so I can see it easily. I square up the deck, revolve it back down. I instantly know the card and no one's had to actually withdraw one or go through any rigmarole. So that's the peak and I've used it a billion times. Now how do you make this real mind reading? Here's what I do. I'll have the spectator take a peek at a card. I'll peek it, revolve the deck, I know it's the 3 of diamonds already, and place it in their hand. So all the work's done, I already know it's the 3 of diamonds. Then I take my fingers and touch their pulse. I look at my watch with the other hand, and I make the little joke, I say, oh, it's okay, I'm a doctor, you can trust me. And I say, wait a minute, I'm feeling a red card and it's the money suit, diamonds. Looks like the 3 of diamonds, right? This has such a strong response for women in particular that I will frequently repeat it again. I'll have them select another card, go through the rolling peak, find out that it's the Queen of Hearts on the way down, put the deck back in their hand. I usually have them put their thumb on top in case their hand wobbles, feel their pulse, and then pump out that it's a red card, a heart, and the Queen. So that's what I use off the cuff when I just want to do something fast and I want to prove I'm a mind reader. But there's something much more spooky and delicious that you can do, and here's what I'd suggest. That you stop at a New Age store and buy yourself a pendulum. The pendulum is an idiomotor device that swings in response to your thoughts. Whether you believe that or not is not the issue. But you can pick up a little cheap book and a good-looking, sexy pendulum at a New Age store these days for just a couple of dollars. So here's how I do it. I introduce the pendulum, say I want to show you something really kind of neat. Have the spectator select a card, and in this instance, after my peek, I know it's the 6 of clubs. I'll put the deck down and explain how a pendulum works. Say I want you to concentrate on your card. When it swings forward and back, that's usually an indication of yes. And when it swings side to side, it's usually an indication of no. Just the way we nod our head, yes, up and down, no, side to side. I say to them, I want you to play poker face until the very end, but I'm going to ask, is it red? And I get a no. And let's just confirm something. Is it black? Yes. So it's telling me it's a black card. Let's go for the suit. Spades, not a spade. I'm going to say it's a club. And we're going to go for the numbers. I'll try and hold it as steady as I can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looks like somewhere between 4 and 7 to me. Is it a 4, 5, a 6? Was your card the 6 of clubs? Usually there's a gasp at this point. That's part 1. Part 2 is what really sells this and will give you a reputation for being an amazing mind reader. This device works for everybody who's relaxed enough and breathing. So, after we do part 1, and everyone sees what a clever fella I am. I say, but that's me doing it, and you may think I'm just making it move. Let's have you do it. See if you can tune in. I give the spectator the pendulum, teach her how to hold it so that it dangles properly. And here's what we do. We go for yet another peek. They stop at a card. I do my peek again. I now know what the card is. Funny, we got the 6 of clubs again. It must be popular this time of year. So she knows the card is the 6 of clubs. I secretly know it's the 6, but she has the pendulum. This takes a little while, but boy, is it worth it. You say, I want you to get a yes first and then a no. So she concentrates, and believe it or not, the pendulum moves in her hand to make a yes. Then we practice making a no. And then I cut the time down a little. I say, I want you to just ask, is it a red card? Invariably, if she's relaxed and breathing, it will swing no, because she knows what the card is. We pump all the way down until she herself, with this device, spins out that it's a 6 of clubs. Let me tell you something about mentalism. If you always make it about them, they will sing your praises high and low. If it's about you, not so much. This one effect will be the highlight of every single thing you do at that party and will be talked about for the longest time because she did it, and she is amazing. One final little tip, if you notice that the spectator is really, really tense, have her stop, take some breaths, encourage her to relax, you'll get a good response. Put it to good work. Let's put all this away. I want to do something. Have you seen some weird stuff tonight? Stuff you didn't think you'd see? What are we in, Wyoming? What state are we in? You don't get that kind of stuff out here, right? All right. I want to show you something super weird. Any of the fellas have a good watch where you can change the time? I'm looking to not to break, but just so that you can change the time. You have does yours do that, or is yours one of those lockdown deals?
You can change it.
All right.
Change the time.
Okay. So my God, feel the heft of that. That's fantastic. And it's relatively easy to read. Okay. So, Mary Jo, would you come and do this with me? You get to hop up on the stool, because I like that on the stool position.
Okay, worked out.
It never occurred to me, but it's great. Now, I have worn glasses since I've been 4, so you're going to have to help me with this.
All right.
We're at almost 8:15, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now let's see. I'm not going to break anything by doing the, all right. So you'll notice that when this turns, oops, I'm sorry. Oh, there we go. You turn the handle and it turns the thingy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know you're a reader, and people that read a lot tend to already have really good imagination. So I'm taking it for granted your imagination's pretty strong.
Okay.
Because that's what we do when we read, if you think about it. We make pictures in our head, then we go see the movie, and then we get really disappointed because it's not what we pictured, right? So I'm going to keep turning this, and then I'm going to rely on you and your skill. Well, I tell you what, I won't turn it all the way. Let's have you start turning it either direction. I'll hold it here.
Okay.
You just keep turning it. And when you feel like it, you just say, well, you just stop.
Okay.
There, already? Okay, push the thingy in. Wheel it in there, it's not my watch, I don't care.
Okay.
All right,
It's
good.
in.
Hold it in your hand face down,
Okay.
and hold it tight, because if it drops, I'm gonna owe him money. Just hold it in one hand for me.
Okay.
Good. Rest that hand, because that thing weighs a ton. I'm gonna put my fingers just here on the back of your neck. I want you to close your eyes. Do you have any idea what time you stopped at?
No, I don't.
Me neither, because you did all the work. So if this works, you get all the glory, and if it doesn't, I get to blame you.
Okay.
I've worked this all out in advance.
All right.
All right. Close your eyes, forget about all these folks here, and I want you to think about your most favorite, or one of your most favorite scenes from a recent book or a classic book that you really love. Got it? Brought
Okay.
to mind? All right.
Mhm.
Here's what I want you to do. I want you to just replay that scene in sort of fast motion over and over again, like a tape loop. So it happens, then it starts again at the beginning, happens again, just over and over. I'm going to put my hand just above your arm. You keep your eyes closed, and I want you to stay focused on that scene. You let me know when the heat increases in your forearm. Sometimes it starts as a little tingling, sometimes it's buzzing, sometimes it's just straight heat, but you let me know when it changes. Just keep replaying that scene over and over and over again. Beginning to end, and then back to the beginning. Now, I feel a lot of heat up and down your back. I don't know if you feel it, but put your attention on your forearm. You let me know when it changes.
Okay.
Hotter or colder?
That's tingly.
Keep your attention right there, and while you're seeing that scene over and over and over again, just let me know, was there any reference to time at all in that scene? Is there a clock on the wall or the passage of time?
No.
'Cause I see a clock while I'm touching your back. Do you have any idea what's on the watch? What time it is?
No, I don't.
Because I'm seeing something crystal clear, and it's 22 minutes past 12. It's 1222, 12:22. Tell me about the sensation in your arm.
It's tingling.
Good. Check the watch, open your eyes, tell everybody what time is on the watch.
12:22.
You are freaking me out, my dear. Let's give her a big round of applause. You did great. And you can keep the watch as a souvenir. I have got to tell you, you folks have just been a delight. I have one request of you, that for the rest of the night, and hopefully for the rest of the month, you just go and have a really good time. Thanks for spending time with me. Good night. So you saw me do something with a borrowed watch that I want to teach you because it's really useful. This was born out of desperation. For years I wanted to get a fancy schmancy trick watch, could never afford one when I was starting out, so I figured out a way to do this performance using a borrowed watch, any kind of watch that's available. So there's no trickery involved, it's actually cleaner and it gets a similar effect. So there are a couple of different kinds of watches that you can borrow from an audience member. I always try to avoid borrowing a lady's watch because they're very small, very delicate, and they're hard to manipulate. Men's watches are much easier, and the dials are normally much bigger, so it's easier to be seen. There are a couple of things you need to know about most watches out there. About 50% of the men's watches, you pull out the stem, as in a traditional analog watch, to change the time, and that's all it does. In some watches, in the demonstration you saw me do, there's a wonderful built-in feature where the stem pulls out 2 clicks. When it's pulled out the furthest, you can change the time by rotating the dial. When it's pushed in 1 click, the little knob will still rotate, but the time will not change. That's very useful. That was the watch that I borrowed when we did our performance, so I took full advantage of it. You need to learn how to do this with either watch. The fancy one with the 2 pullouts, or the regular one where you just pull it out to change the time. This entire thing is based on a complete and total bluff. Here's how we do it. I pull out the stem, and in pulling out the stem, I determine whether it can be pulled out an extra turn so I know what kind of watch I'm dealing with. The watch I'm dealing with here doesn't have the 2 clicks on it, so we're going to do it the slightly harder way, but this you'll come into contact with about 50% of the time. I show the spectator that the hands turn as I turn the dial, as a watch should. And I keep turning and turning and turning while we're talking. I look at the watch intermittently, they look at the watch intermittently. When it's ready to start the mischief, I tilt the watch towards myself and turn the knob several times so I get a very new, fresh time. I look at it and memorize it. This time that we're going to be forcing is 1:10. It's just where the time stopped. You can set it to any time that you like. I turn the watch over. From now on, the watch stays face down. They're never going to see the face again until the very end. So the face of the watch is essentially now out of play. The rest is acting. What I do with a regular watch that doesn't have the double stop on it is I now pretend to keep turning the dial. Please practice this. You can make this look really bad or really realistic, and I'd prefer that you make it look really realistic. I keep pretending to turn the dial, and I ask the spectator to say stop whenever they like. They say stop, and I move my hand away very fairly. I then ask them to push the stem in, which is a way of proving, psychologically at least, that I have been turning it and the knob has been turning freely. So they push it, and we're all set to go. If this is the circumstance with a double stop, what I do is, as I turn the watch over from my preset time, I push in the stem one click, turn it over, and this is what you saw me do in the demonstration. They get to hold the watch face down, and I make sure they put their thumb on it so they don't drop it. It's not their watch. And they can turn the dial until the cows come home. When they get bored with that or they feel something, they push in the stem and they feel the same click in, which also proves that the watch itself has been stopped. So that's our final position. Acting is the trick here. One thing about the time, if you have a specific time or you're going to tell, for example, a spooky story, let's say something in your story happened at 10 minutes to midnight, if you're doing a Halloween kind of show, you just keep turning the dial while you're talking to set it at that time before you turn it face down, so you can literally have any time show up as your climax time. And that's the manipulation of the watch. By now you probably know I'm big on billets. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars hunting down billet workers and learning the most obscure stuff. But I'll let you in on a secret. I got really frustrated. For a long time, there was a device on the market that I could not get a hold of because nobody was making it. It was a fancy schmancy bulldog clip that would actually switch a billet for you. I figured that was the perfect thing. Why bust my knuckles when I could buy one of these? Well, the problem was nobody was making them, and the ones that were available were, well, not so good. So out of desperation, I developed a series of clip switches, and I'll teach you the basic one and leave you to extrapolate the rest. They're pretty simple. You're going to be using two billets. You want to switch one for the other. And let me tell you the applications of this. You can use this for the dollar bill trick that we've talked about. You can use this for birthday billets. You can use this for anything where you have to switch a billet, where you don't want to feel uncomfortable and you want it to clean up fast. This simulates what the trick clip used to do, but it's done with sleight of hand. It's very, very easy. The one you're switching out is in the clip. The one you're switching in is not. It's held normally, the base of your fingers, in what can only be described as not really even a finger palm. It's just held there. You can just stick your thumb on it. This is a wonderful way to switch out anything, and I use it a lot for predictions. This can be hanging from a little holder. It can be up on a wall somewhere in plain sight. And then when it's time to reveal the big prediction at the end, here's what the switch looks like. You unclip it, take it out, and it's done. It's as outrageous as it looks. The basic switch is this one in finger palm, this one in the clip, and you're going to roughly simulate what it's like to unclip a clip. This gets laid over the one in your fingers. You look like you squeeze, and the way you look like you squeeze is your fingers start a little wider than the prongs, squeeze to the prongs, and lift away. As you lift away, your hand hides what's in the clip. So you're not actually doing anything with it, you're just lifting as this one becomes visible. There is a way to see this a little more clearly, that once you get comfortable with it, you no longer need a big honkin' clip. You can do exactly the same thing with a teeny tiny clip, which looks much better and will fool any mentalist watching, because they don't make switch clips this tiny because this paper can't get sucked up into it. So it's the same mechanics, just a little more acting. Acting. This is on display. This is in finger palm. This is the one you're ringing in. This is the one you're ringing out. You take it off its clip or wherever it's placed. Bring your hands together Lay one on top of the other, squeeze or pretend to, and lift. That rings in your billet, and what do you do with a clip you've just unclipped? You chuck it in your pocket because it's just a clip. Your hands are clean and the switch is made. That's the basis of it. I encourage you to play around, see what you come up with. I've got a really funny story for you about the classic effect psychometry. Psychometry can be the highlight of a presentation, and it can be the worst bore you've ever seen in a mind reader's act. I'm going to show you how to make it the best thing you've ever seen and not the worst. Years ago, I put out through Martini some psychometry pouches. These were pouches that were specifically marked for you to tell what pouch belonged to what person. So any objects collected in these pouches, you could identify the owners. Psychometry is, if you think about it, the actual ability to take a piece of jewelry or a personal object, feel its vibrations, and then describe information about the owner. That's actually what mediums do when they do actual psychometry. So in a stage presentation, we're aiming to replicate that and to make it snazzy and sexy. It's normally done with 5 people, 5 different objects, and they're collected in envelopes or canisters, or I think bags look nice and pleasant. And the only real trick to psychometry is that each of the containers that the object is put in is marked. No great brain surgery required to figure that out. These bags were cleverly marked on the inside seam with just a dot or 2 dots in different locations, and they worked really, really well. But I have a couple of things to tell you about psychometry that you need to know so that your psychometry, because you'll read about it a lot in all of the mind reading literature, is not a bore. First, the funny story. I showed up at a very well-paying event, talked about doing psychometry. It's normally the close of my act. I got all, at that point in time I was using envelopes, all of the markings on my envelopes all got flustered up. To this day I don't know what happened, but they got messed up. I was completely lost in the middle of my closing effect. And then I remembered something very important. I had bought a book from Richard Webster years ago called Psychometry from A to Z. That was the title. And it was based on a brilliant idea of our friend Ken de Courcy in England. And good thing I'd read that book, because here's what I did. I tore open all of the envelopes because the markings were all messed up anyway. I decided in my head I was not going to return the objects the way you normally do in psychometry. I would just do what the mediums do. Hold an object and then use Ken's idea of how to generate information that looks psychic from each of the objects. Here's what happened. I got a huge round of applause. I got a really big tip. I got rebooked, and for an hour and a half, an exhausting hour and a half after the performance, other members of the audience who were not involved in psychometry directly came up with a piece of jewelry or a watch or their keys and said, what can you tell from my object? I learned something priceless that day. No one cares about you correctly returning the objects to people. They care about what you have to tell them about themselves. Wow. So here's the suggestion I'll make to you. Try psychometry using a set of bags, a set of canisters, some envelopes, however you want to do it by the classic methods. Test it out in performance for groups and friends and families 5 or 6 times. And then go to the engineers who are watching your performance and ask them how they think you did it. And they will exactly describe to you the method you used, because psychometry is not a very strong effect. Then, in the spirit of experimentation, do what I did. Mimic the mediums. Hold an object, generate some cold reading lines or some psychological insights or what your guts tell you about the owner of the object, and find out what it is to actually read minds and to be in rapport with an audience. You'll get a lot more work, have a lot more fun. I wish you luck. This one's special. If you like private readings the way I do, you'll find in this next explanation something you won't find anywhere else. There is a whole subculture of people who do private readings using all kinds of methods. Some use billets, some use contraptions, some use cards. I'm going to teach you just a basic approach using cards and leave you to extrapolate on some of the other methods. I use some more advanced methods than these, but they're based on this one idea. And I think you might find it's a very profitable idea. Here's the nuts and bolts of it. You take a card with a lot of white space, like a 4, a 2, a 6, something without pips in the middle. No 7s, no 9s, no 8s, none of that stuff. So there's some white space. And what I do is I draw 2 lines with a Sharpie marker on it. And I have the person that has come for a reading sign their name, Barbara. It's our imaginary Barbara. And then I say, Barbara, on this lower line, I want you to think about a really pressing personal question. Don't tell me what it is, but I want you to print it down there and really think about it when you write it. So she thinks for a while, my back is turned. I turn away from her, and let's say she puts, let's say she writes the obscure question, leaving home with a question mark. So that's going to be the question we're going to try and peek. I ask her to turn it face down. And then I take the cards, drop half on top, flash this to her again. I said, you'll remember the card it's written on, right? And she goes, yeah. Hands come back together, and as the deck is coalesced, I'm going to do something called the Kelly bottom placement. Here's what happens as my hand swings down. My fingers grip the top and swivel this bottommost card away from the others. Now, it doesn't just swivel it sideways, it swivels it sideways and big honkin' down. So there's a big, huge gap here, and I have total control over it. So on the way back in, here's what happens. It goes right to the bottom as the other fingers open up and the deck is coalesced. Let me do that again. It's on the bottom part of this half, it's flashed, scooches down, comes in, everything coalesces, it's secretly on the bottom of the deck. I'm going to show you the simple method, and then I'll show you the overly complicated method that I prefer to use. Here's the simple method. You take the deck, you square it on the table. Why would you do such a thing? Because you're looking to find out if things are oriented correctly for you to read or not. And I've just seen it's not. I got to turn it over. So I pick it up, revolve it, open up the card case, and as I slip it into the card case, lo and behold, I see her question on the way in to the box. The box is put down on the table. I ask her to place both her hands on the box. I place my hands on top of hers, which is very intimate, very nice. I ask her to take some breaths while I say a little prayer to myself. I tell her I'm doing this, and I do. We wait, and then we lift off. I then take the cards out of the box, keeping her question card facing me, and I give the deck a couple of tabled cuts and shuffles, and then I give her a series of instructions. Here's what I tell her to do. She's to shuffle the cards as much as she likes, and I would prefer that she hold them near her heart by her chest. When she's done with that, she cuts the cards with her left hand into 3 piles, because that's the tradition that we always use doing a reading. Then I ask her anywhere from the deck, the top, the middle, or the bottom, to take out 5 cards. She does that. And I ask her to check for me without letting me see the faces, just to make sure the 3 of spades is not in our 5. If it is, she's to replace it with another card, but she looks and it's not in the 5. We're good. So she takes the rest of the deck with my instructions, puts it away in the box, seals it up, we chuck it off to the side, and then I take these 5 cards, lay them out in the same ESP card reading that you're going to use, that you're going to find on the bonus section of this DVD, the same format, and I pretend these are just ESP cards in my head and give her a brief reading topped off by addressing her question obliquely, not directly, but obliquely. And you'll learn how to do that on the bonus menu. That's the simple version for giving a reading with a minimum amount of work. It's not actually how I do it. I used to do it this way because I was nervous and I was practicing. Then I got bolder and more relaxed. I'm going to show you the way that I do it now. And there are a bunch of approaches that I use that are all based on this one idea. This idea comes from an old obscure mental book that many copies of this were not printed, but it was a very underground kind of book by Dobbin and Glaze. It had a similar idea, but I've refined this and added a lot more touches. She writes her question, and by the way, if you're a good reader, it doesn't have to be one question. She can write paragraphs on here if you can set yourself up to read it without staring at it. That's quite an acquired skill, but just to keep you thinking along those lines. It goes down. We take half the cards. It's the same Kelly bottom placement we do. I flash the card, comes back in. Here's the exposed view. So it's coalesced to the bottom. Now, what I'm about to do may strike you as superfluous, but it's not, because I'm chatting with the person the whole time. They've seen the card be fairly put in the middle of the deck. I take the deck and separate it, top to my left, bottom to my right, and I drop one card from the right hand first. All the rest of the cards are shuffled off. Now I'm going to expose something to you that I've never exposed before. I then lift up and tilt the bottommost card upwards so it revolves to the face, drop the deck down, and push them square. What I've done is turned over the bottom card. I still don't know if it's the right way up or not. So I'm going to do it again. Top half to the left, bottom half to the right. Single card drops off. Shuffle. And now when I tip up, I'm lucky this time. The card is oriented correctly for me to read, and I don't have to bother about the top. I know what her name is, but the bottom is free and open, lying right on the table. Now, it may strike you as excessive, but I do the same thing again. I revolve this card and legitimately swing cut it into the deck somewhere in the middle. I go through the same deal of having her go through, remove 5 cards, make sure the 3 isn't there. We case everything and get on with the reading. I want to tell you 2 interesting things about card reading. At this day, I know a very legitimate card reader who's a dear friend of mine who doesn't use any trickery like this and has been for 35 years working for 6 clients a day at $80 a pop, 6 days a week, and people hunt her down, and her work is by referral only because her card readings are so powerful. That's a busy schedule. Second thing you need to know is that if you get good at this and you are kind, you can do phenomenally well. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but you do good work, you get to sleep really well at night. Play with it, see what you can come up with, and enjoy. So I want to teach you something that I think is really special. I've been working on it for an awfully long time. The problem with mentalism is that everything gets stuck up in your head. As an audience member, you're busy deciphering words and phrases, you're thinking thoughts. Everything is just literally mental. The rest of the body is essentially cut off. So what I've tried to do over the years is to introduce ways of having spectators literally feel something while they're having a mental experience. So these touches, I'm going to teach you just a handful of hot spots on the body that are likely to activate people's energy. And you can believe in energy or not, but I suggest you try this out and see how much more exciting having a real experience during whatever mental effect you're doing is for a spectator. This is the stuff that gets you remembered. You saw me do a whole bunch of patterns on a person's back and neck and head. I'm just going to show you what they are. These begin and end at some real hot spots. They're acupressure points, but there's no pressure involved. And whenever you're going to touch a spectator, you let them know that you're going to touch them first, so there's no fright response or no one gets uncomfortable. And if you sense that they're uncomfortable with you, you work on yourself first before you ever touch a spectator. So The first hot spot is right on the top of the head. That's the center, the northernmost point that faces the ceiling. We're going to use that a lot. There are 2 points at the base of the skull. There's a ridge at the base of the skull where your skull actually meets the neck. And these are the 2 points that you would likely rub when you get a headache. These are the places that get jammed up. They're hot spots. So one on this side, one on this side. The next hot spot for the body is the bump at the base of the neck. There's a lot of, I use this place an awful lot. There's a lot of activity that switches through here from the spine, and it's usually very active and also very tense in a lot of people. So even just touching this area helps people to relax. And in performance, you want to have people have a good experience and have that good relaxed feeling. The other places that I use are just a few inches down on either shoulder. So here's the top of the shoulder. You drop down until there's a little crease. It's usually about 4 or 5 inches, and you don't have to be exact in this. You're just going to do a specific pattern that helps everybody get out of their head and relax and creates physical sensations in the body. So here's a really simple pattern that you can use, and I'll teach you another one as well. Take a couple of fingers of each hand, start at the crown, the top of the head. You're going to come down, trace down very, very lightly, and stop at this point. So that's your first pass or your first sweep downwards. The next one, you're going to go up to the head again, come down to those 2 achy points, and then travel down to our point, which is at the base of the neck. And for almost everybody, there's a big old bump here, and if you're in the territory, you'll be fine. From there, you sweep back out to under the arms. What this does is this helps literally unstuck the head and brings energy down, so it helps people relax, and it creates a sense of warmth throughout the whole body. Sometimes people feel this in their feet, sometimes they feel it in their head. It doesn't matter where they feel it, it just matters that they feel something. And you also saw me do a pattern that I frequently do, which is to hold 2 fingers right at the top of the head very lightly. There's no pushing, there's no poking, and 2 fingers right at the base of the neck. This is a 1,000-year-old hold that helps balance a body's nervous system. So if some action is going on, whether you're doing a billet test, something with the watch or whatever, and you hold these 2 places and encourage your person to just relax and take a deep breath, you'll find that the effect you get in their body is spectacular, and I usually encourage them to report what's happening so that they can tell the audience that they're having an actual experience. I will tell you that you'll get a lot of people who will credit you with all kinds of mystical powers and wild things they assume that are going on. What's really happening is that you're helping blood flow get unstuck from the head into the rest of the body and helping to create relaxation. So it's a nice piece of icing that you can start playing with and add to any effect that you're doing. Use it well. Now, there's another thing that I do, and if you replay the demonstration several times, you'll hear me do it a couple of times. It's mostly verbal. I believe that the more you get people involved in any mental effect, the more they're going to have a thorough experience. So I usually add in touches, and I also add in verbal, they're not really verbal cues, but it's verbal encouragement. So for example, let's say I've done this tracing down, and I'll do it again for you. First tracing down to under the shoulders, down to the nape of the neck and the big bump, and then out to here. You can do this a couple of times. You have time in performance, it's your show, so you can help that person have a good, full experience. And let's say we end here. What I will verbally encourage people to do is certainly to take a deep breath and relax, which is very unusual because remember, your spectator is nervous as can be being up in front of people, whether it's people they know or not. The #1 fear in the world is a fear of public speaking. So this is very stressful for almost all of us, except people like me. So they're stressed out just being up on stage with you or just being in front of the crowd. So you're activating a body system here, helping the nervous system relax and unwind. Then I'll say things like, let me know when you feel any tension relax. And then I'll give them a bunch of options. I say, some people feel tingling, some people feel heat, some people just feel a shift. You just pay attention and let me know what changes. What's clever about this is that it opens the whole field of experience. So if they follow your directions, which most people will, they will go inside and look for sensations of tingling, hot, cold, and they'll hunt down changes. The beautiful thing is, whatever their experience is, if they report it, you will get credited for that experience, you being the cause of that experience in their system. So even something as simple as a hold like this, it does a lot on its own, but if you encourage them to relax, go inside and report whatever changes, that's a much more thorough, mystical kind of experience. What I do is I tie that into the climax of an effect. You saw me do in the demonstration, when we worked with the pendulum, I waited to reveal the card until the fellow I was working with had an experience that changed. For him, I talked about the tension between his shoulder blades. Now that's a very common place of tension for most of us. And when he went inside and waited for it to change, when he reported that, suddenly I was able to reveal the card. So I'm tying in two things that aren't necessarily related and making them seem related. What that does is that gives him a full experience, which translates out onto his face that the audience can see. The audience gets to see a much more full experience and credits me with being in sync with him. My job as a mind reader and a mentalist is to get rapport with people, and touching them with integrity and delicacy is one way of doing that, and leading them verbally is another way. So we not only get the mental effect, we get the sensation, then we get the report, and their reaction is the thing that the audience gauges your ability from. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. I encourage you to play with gentle touches and verbal direction, just so you can see what you can come up with. Use it well and have some fun. My job really is on the gap between mind reading and psychology. That's really what I do. Tell me your name.
Chad.
Chad. Chad, I gave you a deck of cards that's a weird one to hold on to. Would you take it out of the box and just start shuffling the cards? We're not actually going to work with you. I just wanted to have you be the guy who looks after these. And you might want to check the deck out. It's a very weird one. Anybody ever been to, I guess we're on video, so you may not want to fess up to this, but anybody ever been to a fortune teller? Awesome. Awesome. Good. Leave those cards, and we'll work with these. And you might want to show our camera what a wacky deck of cards that is. That's actually a deck of cards that was developed by Dr. Joseph Rhine at Duke University for testing extrasensory perception. We're not actually going to check out your ESP per se, but we're going to do something kind of wild with the deck. I'm going to scooch a little closer to you. This brings the act truly close to you. I want you to take the cards, give them a little bit more shuffle, but hold them right by your heart, right up by your chest. And it was Paul, right?
Correct.
Excellent. So, Paul, I want you to think about something that's important to you. I'm not going to ask you to reveal it. We're going to keep it a secret between the two of us, but just think about it. Put the cards down, and with your left hand, that would be that one, cut the cards into 3 piles for me, and if you'll collect them back up any order you like. What's interesting about ESP cards is they're just symbols. They're colorful symbols, nothing more than that, but they kind of unlock a part of our brain that we don't tend to use much, or at least I don't tend to use much. We're going to use the top 5 cards. Wow, you're freaking me out. Did you plan that? That's very unusual, because the deck of cards has, I think it's got 5 or 6 different sets of I mean, there's other squares. That's really weird. Wow, I'm glad you came. You may not be by the time we're done, but each of these positions tells us something radically different about what's important in your life. What I'd like you to do is to think about what you have been concerned about, because what shows up always relates somehow or other. So the onus really is on you to help you kind of make sense of what I'm going to tell you. This is the love category. Well, hang on a second. Let me tell you about squares, because squares showed up all around except for here. It's fascinating. Squares are always people who have a mindset of being stuck in an office or a job or an environment that's confining. We make boxes, we make office buildings, we make square structures. We tend to get a little claustrophobic in them. So this is the love category, and there's a sense of constriction. Are you sure you want to be here tonight? Let's glaze over that to the next category. This is the work category. And this is frequently, if a square is going to show up, this is frequently where it does pop up. This is the sense of being in a cubicle or being in an office building or being in a routine that is not changing fast enough for you, a sense of constriction. A lot of accountants have a lot of squares that show up, people who are really good with facts and figures who don't mind the cubicle mindset. I don't think that's the case with you. Here is the category of relationships and family specifically. So either our technical family, our mom and dad and sisters and brothers, or our extended family, our friends. Things have been kind of stuck for a while. And I'm going to dwindle that over here to our health category, where things are just status quo. Things are just grooving along. There's nothing out of whack, there's nothing under whack, it's just what it is. There's a lot of constriction happening in those major categories for you as it relates to what you're thinking about. Here's the payoff. This is all about our aspirations and our specific goals. You couldn't pick two different symbols more opposite, which is what's so fascinating. You're not a Gemini by chance, are you? Okay, because sometimes, you know, well, usually Geminis can't figure out where to park, so they never make it in. This is all about creativity, and it's in the category that deals with our goals and aspirations and what we actually want for ourselves. When a lot of these show up, I tell people they should be painting, writing, dancing, being swimming instructors, doing something that expresses who they are out in the world. It is actually the most important category, and it has bearing for the other stuck parts of your life. I'm not going to pry because we're in an unusual environment doing a DVD with people that you know, and you've just met me. And you probably know where I park, so you can key my car on the way out. But let me ask you honestly, does this have bearing for you as it relates to what's in your mind at the moment?
I would say yes.
Awesome. You get your $5 in the mail. I'll send it to you next week. Let's give them a big round of applause. So I want to just give you a little insight into the very first thing that I had published in all of Magic. It was called my Simple, Easy ESP card reading system, and I'm going to teach it to you because it's simple, quick, and easy. The lovely Sid Lorraine was enamored with this and was kind enough to come and see me do it where I was working at the time, and introduced it to a lot of people. And Bascom Jones picked it up and published it. We miss Bascom. He liked this because of its simplicity. It's a way of organizing your mind. If you're going to do card reading for people, you want them to be short, to the point, and entertaining. That's the #1 imperative. So it still relies on our number system. We know that circles are 1s, pluses are 2s, wavy lines are 3s, squares are 4s, and stars are 5. So there are 5 pieces of information that you can tell people depending on where they put cards. You'll actually learn 10 pieces of information over the next couple of minutes, but they're really easy to organize so that you can whip out the Magic Maker's deck, do a short little reading for people, and they'll be thrilled. So the first thing you need to know is a little bit of the way I see the world in terms of these symbols, because you're going to take this and adapt it for your own world model, and that way it'll sound like you doing a reading instead of sounding like me. The circle is all about completeness. Completeness is your key word for whenever a circle comes up. If you look at the plus is an intersection of 2 separate lines. This is always, for me, about relationships. This is where friends, families, lovers, husbands, wives, boyfriends, and girlfriends intersect. So this is a relationship card. The 3 wavy lines for me is all about creativity, flow, and creative expression. The 4 is a box. I always say 4 is the symbol of the accountant or someone who works in an office. This is about restriction and about work. And everybody wants to be a star, or at least that's what I hear. Everybody wants to be a rock star. So the star is about that. It's about celebrity, fame, and aspirations. So in probably, what did it take us? 30 seconds, you've learned 5 key ideas about what these symbols mean. That's half of the system. The other half of the system is a layout that's really simple and easy to remember on the table wherever you're going to lay cards out to do a reading. You're going to lay them out in 5 positions: the top, the sides, the bottom, and the middle. Now, what you have to do for yourself if you're going to do ESP card readings or card readings of any sort is figure out, probably by reading really good books or sitting quietly and just figuring it out, what are the 5 parts of human experience that everybody cares about. Remember, a reading is not about you, it's about the person you're reading for. So if you asked 100 people you stopped on the street, what are the 5 areas of life that they care the most about? Well, what would be the biggies? The one I always talk about first is the #1 winner, hands down, no matter who it is, where they live in the world, or what they're doing, it's love. Yep, all you need is love, it's true. And it turns out that all we want to hear about most on our top priority list is money. Not money, excuse me, is love. Oh, what a beautiful segue into our second category. The second category is, well, you got to finance that love some way or another. It's all about money. That's going to be our second position. So love is first, money. The third is family, whether that's a traditional family, an extended family, the friends you consider to be family. It's the people in your life that you're around. So we have love, money, family. Health is huge, and health is very important to everybody on planet Earth at most periods in their life. So it's love, money, family, health, and the final one in the middle is, for me, it's a category of either aspiration, what they're going for, what goals they have set, or it's a way of summing up what I've told them. So let me explain to you how this works. Think about our positions as only being on the table. It doesn't matter what symbols are there for now, but whatever card lands here, you're going to talk about love in relation to that card. Whatever card lands here, you're going to talk about money. Here you're going to talk about family. Here you're going to talk about health. And in the middle you're going to talk about their aspirations, goals, or you're going to sum everything up as best as you can. There's another piece of information you need which expands my reading system because Magic Makers was clever enough to include a whole bunch of other cards. Now, I'm not going to give you meanings for these specific symbols, but I'm going to encourage you to give some thought as to what they mean for you, because chances are what they mean for you, they will mean similar things to other people on planet Earth. And those are those extra symbols that we have. I mean, this is an infinity symbol, obviously, but these will have particular meanings for you. It's a way of making your reading unique. So once you have some meanings for these other symbols, you have everything you need to know to do a quick and powerful reading for a complete and total stranger. That's a lot to say, isn't it? Let me show you how this works. You meet Mrs. Abramowitz at a cocktail party that you're working, and the discussion inevitably gets around to mind reading, psychics, ESP, thought projection. Especially if you're hired as a mentalist, it definitely gets around to that. Even if you're hired as a magician, if you stay at a party long enough, you'll always have someone talk about a card reading they went to, and you can offer to give an ESP card reading. And what I usually say to folks is that this is a very unique system that I learned from a friend of mine. Well, I don't actually say that. You can say that because I'd like to be your friend, and that way you give me credit. And it's based on a whole set of beautiful, colorful ESP symbols. The person is asked to shuffle the deck. I usually have them shuffle it close to their heart. I have them hold it up to their heart, near their chest, shuffle the cards as much as they like. And then we follow a several thousand-year-old tradition of having them cut the cards into 3 piles using their left hand. Now, I don't actually know why we do that, but I figure it's been happening for so long, why stop now? And then they reassemble the pack in any order. They can either deal cards off the top, or they can spread the cards out and select 5 cards. I have them put them face down in each of these 5 positions.
And we get the rest of the cards out of the way because they are not relevant. It also helps keep the readings brief. We're only going to look at 5 cards, so these other cards that we removed shortens up the reading. This is useful if you are doing a lot of readings over the course of an evening. You want to keep them very brief and punchy. So no matter what symbol is here, and you don't know what it is, you don't have to know because you're going to turn it over in a minute, you're going to talk about love in relation to this symbol. Let's see what it is. Now, in my mind, the plus sign, the cross, the intersection is always about couples and relationships with people, and it's in the love category or the love area. So you're going to talk to your person about how critically important it is for them to have a good, sound, loving basis in a relationship. Whether they're in a relationship, getting divorced from a relationship, looking for a relationship, doesn't matter. This is of vital importance to their character. And you can expand on that, and I suggest you do, and I'll give you some ways to do that shortly. So you've left the love category. You're going to move to the money category, which is here for me. Money, as it relates to creativity, are the 2 key words in my head. Here's what I usually say. I say, you know what? Working in an office or a dull, repetitive job will drive a lot of people crazy, but it will make you super crazy. This is a symbol of creative expression, and it's in the house of work for you. You've got to be doing something creative. You have to be writing, painting, teaching, dancing, doing something that expresses who you are creatively out in the world. That's our category. Next is family, or the broadest sense of who our family is. And this symbol turns out to be another plus. Ironically, the more symbols of one type that show up, the stronger and more pertinent that information is to this person. So here we're talking about the intersection of personal relationships in the house of friendship. So I'll say something like this. A lot of people have friends, and lots of us have acquaintances that we go and see once a year for dinner, or a couple of times a year we'll go boating with them or go hang out. But for you, intimate personal contact with a wide variety of groups and friends is really important for keeping you stable, balanced, and growing as a person. Who could argue with that? Over here is our health category. One warning. This is a piece of entertainment. And if you're going to give health advice, my suggestion is, unless you really like prison food, that you don't. You're going to talk about health and their life force without pretending to be a doctor, even if you are a doctor. And if you are a doctor, why are you doing ESP card readings? But I digress. So here we are in health. Isn't this interesting? This person is all about relationships. What I'll say here is that the health of you as a couple is paramount. In fact, my sense of it is that you're at this point in time, at this snapshot in your life, concerned about the health of someone close to you. Now, I'm not a doctor and I don't pretend to be one, but I know that with enough love, caring, good guidance, and support, you can help that person through whatever health challenges they may be facing. Our final category is either a summation of what you've learned, and in this summation you're going to talk about how personal relationships are critical to them. It's also about their goals and aspirations. So the symbol that shows up here is the infinity symbol. For me, and you can come up with whatever meanings you like, this is about endlessness. This is time removed. And what I mean by that is that, well, I'll tell you what I would say to someone. This is the infinity symbol, which to me, this is in your category of aspirations or goals. This means you have very long-term vision. You're not someone who sets projects a week or 3 months or even 6 months out. You're thinking in terms of decades and the middle of your life and the end of your life. And even, I don't know if you believe in reincarnation, but even the continuation of life. This is all about life over time. The one thing I'll say to you, because it's shown up a lot here, is that the personal relationships that you're grooming with other people now are really an important part of keeping your creative expression balanced and for you to become the fuller, more complete person that you are. And I hope this has been a help to you. So that's a very brief meander through the ESP card reading system. And you can stop with that level of complexity, but let me make a suggestion. I had a little influence with magic makers and asked them to do something that would serve my purposes really well, and they were kind enough to do that. There are 6 colors in this deck: black, orange, yellow, blue, red, and green. You remember from school, we had Roy G. Biv. You remember Roy G. Biv? Roy G. Biv was a good camper. I'm going to get a little esoteric on you, and if it gets too esoteric, you can just fast forward through this part. Color is a really important part of people's life, and if you're looking for really good explanations about how to help people in readings or even quick ESP card readings, I would suggest you pick up a bunch of books on what are called the chakras. The chakras are energy centers in your body, whether you believe them or not, and they correspond to specific colors. Ironically, they correspond to these specific colors. And if you imagine that black is indigo, you get almost all of the chakras covered. And this format of working gives you 3 layers of information when you lay out 5 cards to do a reading. You talk about the symbol and its meaning, the place that it occupies, meaning what area of life is critical to them, and you can add on this extra layer of color meaning to talk about where the intensity is in their physical body and how that gets expressed in their life. You can take all of those levels of complexity, you can take just the first one, and you'll serve people really well. I'll ask you one favor if you're ever going to think about going down this path of doing ESP card readings for people. My one favor is that you be compassionate and kind when you read for a stranger. If you pretend always that the person sitting in front of you is your sweet mother or grandmother or father or grandfather, I would ask that you only say to this stranger something you would say to them in the kindest possible frame. You'll do a couple of things by that. You'll get really clean karma, you'll make lots of friends, you'll make more money than you can shake a stick at, and you'll do a lot of good. It's up to you. Enjoy.
So there you have it. Things to work on, ways to open up your mind and the minds of other people. Do good work with it. That's 13. I'm Rudy Hunter. Good night. Take care.